All right, I think the red means I'm on. Welcome to Taking Drupal Commerce to Market, our 2019 Roadmap Talk. I am Ryan Szrama, the CEO of Commerce Guys. Have a bit of a history in the e-commerce space. Once upon a time, I was an OS Commerce contributor. Do we have any OS Commerce users in the audience? No? Zyncart, any other derivatives maybe? I still have plugins up on their website, which is fun to go look back at and see how terrible they were. I created UberCart. This was around the Drupal 5 beta time frame. And then after that, I co-founded Commerce Guys with a couple of friends from the Drupal community who were using UberCart for their personal and work websites. That was in 2009 at DrupalCon DC. We inked the paperwork and the rest is history. So I guess that means we're 10 years old now too, which is cool, as of last month. We created Drupal Commerce starting in 2010 to replace UberCart on Drupal 7 and beyond. This was when fieldable entities were a big thing. We take that for granted now. This was like a decade ago, but it was new then. And I am an unapologetic brick and mortar shopper. I hate buying stuff on the internet. Am I alone? Okay, I guess I'm alone. For example, I bought these shoes. This was the size shoe that I was supposed to purchase, and this particular manufacturer was one size off for me, so it cost me $8 to exchange them. That's not fun. I could have figured that out in the store. All right, that's neither here nor there. In February 2016, going back 3 years now, we actually separated Platform.sh and Commerce Guys. I don't know if anybody knew that we had developed this whole like hosting platform as a service thing that then became the Magento cloud called Platform.sh. But we separated in 2016 so that the core team, myself, Matt Glaman, who's over here, Bojan Jovanovic, who's probably joining remotely from Belgrade, Serbia, we were refocusing our efforts on Drupal Commerce, trying to think what could this product look like today if we hadn't been distracted by raising venture capital and building a hosting product for the last 5 years. And I think that what's happened since then proves or testifies to what a small, dedicated team can achieve when they do narrow their focus. We released Drupal Commerce 2.0 a year and 5 months ago, I guess. It was DrupalCon Vienna. Our first beta sites were live in Ireland the year before that in 2016. That was the Sport Obermeyer case study, if you've seen that. And now today, we're over 7,000 sites on Drupal 8. So this kind of tracks with where we were on Drupal 7 with Drupal Commerce 1 around like 2013 timeframe. We have like pretty great growth over the last year, and we're seeing people begin to really migrate in earnest from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. And we're not slowing down our contributions. Despite doing this now for 3 years, we're definitely feeling the weight of trying to take on this massive project as a small team. We've regrown back to 7, but still are a pretty small team trying to stay focused on contrib. Thankfully, a lot of folks sponsor our time. So Media, for example, funded price list and wish list development. Circle Web Foundry helped us push out the Belgrade demo. Acro Media funds a lot of work on Migrate, point of sale integration, and so on. PayPal just sponsored the complete PayPal checkout integration that we're launching at DrupalCon Seattle. So thanks to folks like these, companies and others, we are able to put a lot of our time back into contributing to Drupal. And I think Dries said this past year we were the #2 organization in the whole world, despite being like 1/100th the size of Acquia, who was #1. And then a fraction of the size of the #3 and following as well. We do maintain a public roadmap if you'd like to see. Our current efforts are around address book, finalizing the commerce recurring module, finalizing the commerce shipping module, and producing the integrations for the common carriers for shipping. I think we also have done a lot of work lately on price list. If anybody's interested to see where pricing will head in the future, the price list module funded by Media supports any number of price lists for any number of SKUs, and they put it through its paces with a 15 million SKU product catalog and price lists exceeding 250,000 SKUs. But pretty fun to see like all this stuff come together, and so the current roadmap is just to kind of keep doing a lot of that and find ways to win back more of our developer team's time just to focus on contrib. Why not? a big focus for us when we think about feature set for Drupal Commerce is Headless Commerce. Has anybody built a Headless Commerce site already? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Well, let's just define it for everybody real fast. I think Headless Drupal is a familiar term. So we probably are all familiar with like the decoupled Headless Horseman kind of Drupal logos that get thrown around to show a Drupal backend serving content to a JavaScript frontend. So using Drupal as a content data store, not necessarily as the front end of the website. So the same thing is true for Headless Commerce. You're separating the whole customer experience layer, so shopping carts, product catalogs, browsing, faceting, filtering, navigation, everything. You're separating that from the actual backend application. So the backend is still Drupal Commerce. It's still the same PHP code, but the front end can be built in anything. It can be a completely decoupled JavaScript application. We have one customer that does that. They launch new brand sites and new markets just using React, and so they spun up a completely separate team to focus on the front end while we continue to build and maintain their back end. It also let them serve content into a Drupal 7 front end, which is interesting, right? You don't typically think about Headless Drupal serving into another Drupal instance, but the same APIs that support a full Headless Commerce application can be used by anything on the front end. So in their case, it's just a little JavaScript widget that knows how to interact with the API and build that cart on the Drupal 8 site and then redirect there for checkout whenever the time comes. So it's all about separating that whole, anything related to the customer engaging with you, separating that from the business application that defines your data model, business logic, payment and fulfillment workflows, and more. Headless Commerce can support any number of front-end sites or apps from a single backend. All right, this is, when you think about probably the typical paradigm that people have in mind is, well, if I want to serve different brands or different markets, I create a different Drupal site for that. Or I spin up a different Magento store, or I subscribe to a separate Shopify Plus instance. And people are really used to this idea that it's single tenancy for all these applications. True across the board, especially so in the enterprise space. Well, it shouldn't have to be that if we're talking about just an API that can have any number of SKUs in it and any number of customers and any, like there's no reason that it can't just be one backend serving any number of target front ends. And finally, Headless Commerce allows you to scale and evolve parts of the application stack without replacing the whole. This is probably like the biggest reason people don't leave Magento is because once you're in Magento, you have an awesome ecosystem where everybody for the last 8 to 10 years has integrated their software into Magento. So whenever I buy Magento, what I'm really buying is an e-commerce application that's guaranteed to scale, more or less, and connections to all the myriad of thousands of services out there in the world that wanted access to Magento's customer base. Well, oftentimes Magento users need a better front-end shopping experience because there is no CMS in Magento. And so what can they do? They can either just pay to customize Magento like crazy and then have to maintain this sort of bespoke Magento front end forever, or they can stand up WordPress in front of it, or often Drupal in front of it. And Acquia has some great case studies, like Wilson.com, of standing up Drupal 7 at the time, or Drupal 8 in front of Magento or another application on the back end. Decoupling allows you to evolve the front end or the back end, your marketing automation tool or your payment system. It really starts to separate out these concerns so you can evolve each thing in its own pace without having to just re-platform, because nobody wants to re-platform. No, especially in the e-commerce space, nobody wants to have to re-engineer their whole fulfillment automation workflow. But we'd like them to. We think there are compelling reasons to choose Drupal over these other applications. But first we have to prove to them that Drupal Commerce actually is a suitable headless commerce engine that they should adopt and make the core of their commerce platform and then build around. Now, going headless is how our largest customers grew to support thousands of concurrent visitors, scaled to support tens of thousands of orders per day. I think we had one site peaking over 10K in a single hour in response to a national advertisement campaign. You have to get Drupal out of the front end, because as soon as you hit Drupal rendering, views query building, form submission, you're toast. You're trying to operate at that scale. Just ask some folks here at this conference about how quickly the cache form table can bloat. It's also how they, like I said before, engage specialized teams for front-end development. So you can actually get a React team to build your snazzy new front-end app without them having to know anything at all about Drupal on the back end. And again, it's also how our largest customers are launching new sites without having to spin up a whole new Drupal instance, introduce more maintenance overhead. Right? How great would it be for a commerce organization with 100 brand sites to only have to worry about one security update? I think that would save a lot of Drupal agencies a lot of time when those security releases come out. So I'm not going to talk about this anymore because I feel like I'm taking up too much time here in our 30 minutes. But if you want to see more about how we're delivering headless commerce, you can go to Matt's talk tomorrow. I think it's actually in this room. Yeah, in this room at 12:45. And he'll run you through everything that we've done with Gatsby, with React, with JSON API, with our own modules to support headless commerce on Drupal 8. A lot of our roadmap is focused on making this a reality, like to whatever expression that means for you. All right, so it's a trending, but it's far from a settled market. I don't know if we've heard about any of these companies. Anybody heard of any of these companies before? No, some. Yeah, who have you heard of? Elasticpath. Yeah, that's right, because Aqua just announced their partnership with them for Headless. Elasticpath, I heard about them like 6 years ago, because before anybody was even waking up to what REST was, we're now in a post-REST phase. But they had, I'm recorded, they had an awesome hypermedia API. So if you want to see how hypermedia can work, they nailed it. So anyways, these guys are all great. Spryker was introduced to me by Invika, formerly ICOS. Molten, I think Dries introduced me to them a while ago. Commerce Tools is big in Germany and elsewhere. These are all companies that are just focused on basically API servers for scalable commerce solutions. Cool. Also, traditional SaaS storefronts are moving this direction. So think about the fact that Shopify is growing this whole army of agencies that specialize in that. Was it Liquid? Their Liquid front-end framework. That's basically headless commerce, just with Shopify-hosted checkout forms. And frankly, their checkout forms are awesome. Who else is doing this? BigCommerce. I think Aqua is also looking to partner with them. Bring BigCommerce to the table, because BigCommerce, of all the traditional SaaS vendors, has the crappiest theme store you can imagine. It's Drupal levels of bad, but they're this big, this big company. So people are going this direction because that's how you improve customer experience. It's how you scale. It's how you adapt and react to change. We believe change is at the center of commerce. And if you can't adapt to change, you're dead in the water. And so they're heading this direction. And we believe that Drupal as a community, as a project, and Drupal Commerce specifically as sort of a subset of Drupal, has distinct advantages over these competitors. And I don't have time to really dig into them in the talk, but just think about licensing and community development, like the wall I showed of agencies that are all invested in making the product better for everybody. You don't get that there. What you get is Shopify building an app marketplace so that everybody wants to nickel and dime you until your Shopify Plus store costs $20,000 a month. That happens. Think about framework flexibility. You cannot customize the back end of traditional SaaS. Tailored checkout flows. Look into case studies like Sport Obermeyer or like LivePerson. These are case studies we have on Drupal.org, where you have multiple checkout flows, 12 for LivePerson, 3 or 4 for Obermeyer, 15 for LivePerson, where literally you can customize the checkout flow on any segment you can imagine. User role, B2C versus B2B, fulfillment pattern, is it a recurring subscription versus a one-off purchase? Drupal Commerce makes all of these things possible through configuration, through custom plugins, and nobody comes close to the level of flexibility that we've built into this. And we say this confidently, having benchmarked our competition. We're also great when it comes to internationalization, cross-border commerce. There is no other e-commerce platform in the world that beats us when it comes to multi-currency, address formatting, form generation, and validation. Sorry, I know I'm killing the captions here. All over the world, because we basically sub-licensed and contributed back to the Android SDK to make sure that you could get addresses anywhere in the world localized to those countries. Think about payment gateway coverage, multi-domain, multi-store coverage, like anything that comes into play in cross-border commerce, multinational organizations, like it's kind of there out of the box. And modules like price list are extending that functionality even further. That said, despite being technically competent, we lack the sort of commercial support behind it. Right? You can go to Shopify and get support. You can go to Magento and get support. You can go to Elastic Path and get support. And in the Drupal community, you're kind of on your own. If you're a developer or if you're an agency, you have to build out your own internal competency, or be lucky enough to find us in Slack or find us in an event and have us answer your question for you. And so our goal really throughout the rest of this year is to do what it takes to be able to make Drupal competitive with these other folks and sort of reposition ourselves, commerce guys, as an actual software vendor of the commerce modules, as opposed to just kind of like maybe an agency, maybe a team, maybe some people that sit on their laptops at events, like actually kind of reapproach what it would look like to maintain Drupal commerce like a product, much like Redis does, or Mongo does, or Cilius does, a Symfony-based e-commerce framework. Who are the other like typical open source projects that have support agreements? WordPress, GitLab, I think, they're a company, but yeah. So basically, we're trying to head that direction because we know that if we want Drupal commerce to continue to grow, we have to be able to meet these needs that customers that scale Drupal commerce have. And so we can go and make the best technical presentation of Drupal commerce in the world to an organization that's ready to spend on it. But if they don't know if there's a 24/7 support SLA or any sort of uptime guarantees on this, that, or the other hosting platform, they just can't adopt it. Not that they don't want to, not that they wouldn't if they could, they just can't. If there aren't delivery partners, a network of people that are skilled and competent to implement the software for them, and if we aren't catching up at least on the integration standpoint. And so we're trying to solve all of this and just make our company more sustainable by pursuing a product roadmap. Because frankly, you lose a lot of sleep being the number 2 contributor to Drupal as a 7-person team. And we cannot do it forever, and my beard is actually getting gray hairs. Which, okay, that's not a big deal for maybe most of the men in the room. It was new for me over the last couple of years. So the question is, how can we possibly get there? Because we don't have the gajillions of dollars that these companies do. We don't have the armies of engineers. We have a Boyan. We have a Boyan Shivanovic. Magento has 20 Boyans that maintain their core framework. They have 1.6 billion Adobe dollars right behind them. It's staggering the level of investment these other projects have, and yet we're not out of the picture. I mean, we're not competitive. We are taking deals from them, but Drupal commerce has to grow into it. And so we'll get there one step at a time, and then I'll reformat the slides after this presentation. Because that looked great in the browser. So the first step, and what we're soft launching here at MidCamp, is Centarro Toolbox. And the idea is that, sorry, I kind of skipped a step here in my explanation. We know where we want to be. So I'm going to reverse engineer now, what are the things we do along the way to get to the point where we have an actual competitive product. The first thing is just being able to offer support and deliver updates, right? You can't have anything SASE without orchestration around it, without a support infrastructure. And so that's what Centarro Toolbox is. It's a collection of products and tools that basically make running a Drupal commerce site easier for agencies, more secure and dependable for merchants. Hopefully priced at $99 a month so that any agency would actually save money selling it to their customers. But I'm happy to talk about that after the fact. But the basic idea is that there's an update assistant that actually delivers updates when security releases come out. And then there's a quality monitor that proactively identifies problems in a code base so that you can fix them. We're doing this now. We're detecting problems in our own code bases and fixing them as a result. And then what we launched at DrupalCon Nashville as Lean Commerce Reports, we're just rebranding to be Centarro Insights. It's a sales and analytics dashboard built right into the back end of Drupal, but not dependent on Drupal. We use a NoSQL storage backend, and then just make it all pretty for merchants to see what's going on in their store. And then finally, bundling in there offers from those integrated technology partners, because that's, again, part of what people choose a platform for is who is your ecosystem. And so I'm able to say now Avalara is going to offer a 60-day free trial for Centarro Toolbox users to see what sales tax automation looks like in the back end of Drupal Commerce. And that's great. Right? And we had to get Avalara to the table. We had to show them that there actually was something here worth investing in. We had to show PayPal there was something here worth investing in before they would come and join us to help promote Drupal and Drupal Commerce as a platform. So the Toolbox is like our vehicle for tying that all together. So Toolbox already provides update assistance. I think Matt just updated all of our client sites based on yesterday's security release, which is cool. It already monitors code quality, and you may have actually used our quality monitor without knowing it. Whenever Dries tweeted out about Matt's work on PHP Stan, that's all part of the quality monitoring. So not only can we check to see is your code full of deprecated code, or is it conforming to Drupal's coding standards, we now are encoding in there problems that we find in our client sites. So what was the recent example where we were able to write a pattern for...
Somebody flush a response in a hook and not outside of the normal response lifecycle.
Okay, and I don't know what response you're talking about. But we're able to create a pattern that can, or I guess create a part of Quality Monitor to detect when somebody is like running these operations out of order or out of context and causing problems. So like we know if we see a problem once, we'll see it again. So we're now encoding those problems into the Quality Monitor so we can just raise those as problems whenever it detects them on your side. And then finally, we're also already delivering insights. This was live client data. I scrubbed it and then kind of fudged the numbers a little bit. But the basic idea is that it's sales reports, conversion rate graphs, funnel optimization, so you can see per channel, per campaign, how is my site performing, all working and fun to see live, because it means, it's cool to see live. Anyways, not going to belabor the point. If you want to check it out, Matt and I are both here and happy to demo that and talk more about it. But the idea is that this really is part about finding a sustainable business model for us as a company without necessarily costing anybody more money. This is where partners make a lot of sense, like PayPal, for example, willing to invest in Drupal Commerce because they know they'll make money on transaction fees. It doesn't cost a merchant anymore for PayPal to pay us to go and integrate their module, and everybody wins. And so we're trying to find those sort of mutually beneficial ways that we can help people succeed with Drupal Commerce and bring some predictability and maybe less stress to our business at the same time. Next up, of course, is building out the support infrastructure. So we've integrated Zendesk into the toolbox and made our core team available for support in there. And what we found out is that we can actually tie support tickets to issues on Drupal.org. So often what happens is somebody pings us in Slack and says, hey, this isn't working. And we say, oh, that's because this issue hasn't been solved yet. And it's like a 6-month-old issue. We've commented on it a few times, but never actually found the time to resolve it. And we don't have any way to actually track how many times does that issue come up. The best we can do right now is look at the follower count on the issue on Drupal.org. So what this allows us to do is correlate issues in Zendesk to items on Drupal.org and then just run a report and see, okay, 15 people reported support requests related to this issue, and that'll be the next one that Boyan focuses on. I mean, Boyan is basically full-time just maintaining Drupal Commerce, and between the rest of the team, we have another full-time person, so it's a day per week from everybody else. And ideally, we'll continue to scale the team over this year to just put more people on contrib development and maybe free up more of Lisa's time to document things. But I love the fact that Zendesk allows us to do that. I wasn't sure we would be able to, but the big thing for us is being able to kind of mutualize everybody's efforts toward resolving bugs that are impacting more people. Otherwise, we get rabbit holed on a bug that takes us 2 weeks to resolve and affects 2 people. And that doesn't feel great. So anyways, the goal is, launch a support program that can unblock any developer in 15 minutes or less, because we've often seen the things you're experiencing. The next step along the way will be to launch Centarro Cloud at DrupalCon Amsterdam. This will look like something like the Magento Cloud or the Sensio Cloud, where you just take an existing platform as a service, white label it, and make it optimized for Drupal Commerce hosting and development. We already have commercekickstart.com tooled up as this WYSIWYG for building a composer file. I don't know if anybody's seen that or played with it, but the idea is that you can kind of like click and turn on the modules you want in your composer.json file, and then it will spit out what you need to go and build the site. So the idea is to connect that to cloud so that instead of just starting from a vanilla Drupal 8 install, you actually can just pre-configure the modules you want and pre-configure our demo content if you want it, the Belgrade theme if you want it, and then just deploy that into the cloud environment. And I mean, frankly, it works as is because platform.sh and others are really friendly to composer-based workflows. But there's definitely a lot of work to do between here and Amsterdam, so more gray hairs before we're able to launch that. And then finally, this is purely about contrib. We do need to finalize and complete our REST API support. So it's not just about browsing a product catalog or implementing facets on a JavaScript front end because you're connected to Search API or something. It's not just about that. It's also about everything on the back end that you need to, say, fulfill an order with multiple shipments through multiple carriers and show tracking numbers in the app on the front end, right? There's a lot that happens behind the scenes in e-commerce. And to have a full headless commerce solution, you have to be able to expose that data to the front end as well. Boyan has been working primarily on this, and then Matt has been supporting him as much as humanly possible in between client engagements. If you want to see that, I think, does demo.kickstart.com have the decoupled flyout right now? It does? Okay. Yeah, so if you go to demo.commercekickstart.com, it's the Belgrade demo, and then the Commerce Cart API and Commerce Cart flyout modules that show basically just it's a full JavaScript add to cart form, flies in the shopping cart, lets you update the cart all via JavaScript, and then proceed to the checkout form. So it's part of progressively decoupling Drupal by default for the sake of scalability, customizability, and so on. And we'll continue to tool that up so that what's there on Drupal.org will be fully capable and competitive with the likes of Elastic Path, who again have an awesome Hypermedia API you should check out because Hypermedia is great. So these are the steps along the way. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll tie that all together into Centarro Enterprise, but the gist of it is everything is still just Drupal Commerce, open source modules, but it's commerce guys shifting to a company more like other open source product vendors to work better alongside agencies in a non-competitive manner, but also to just develop a revenue model that makes our lives a little less crazy and delivers tremendous, overwhelming value to merchants. I mean, even just insights, automatic updates, and the offers alone coming in from our technology partners to make this possible, will make it almost net neutral to any merchant that adopts it. It's certainly true for ours. So if you have any questions, definitely email me or grab me while I'm here. Because we want to hear feedback, is this a crazy idea? Why are you even trying to do this? Does this mean you're trying to dual license things like Magento? No, the GPL doesn't allow that. But happy to talk about any of the above because we really see this as the future of our business, and we see it as the way that we continue to unblock barriers to Drupal Commerce's growth. I read about this in the blog recently. The way that Drupal is growing and the way that Drupal Commerce will grow is by becoming more competitive with these other platforms who are technically capable, but also providing kind of a robust commercial support offering as well. I think that may bring us to time. Yeah, we're 1 minute shy, so I'm going to not take questions from here, but I will go out immediately outside these doors, and if anybody wants to chat, I'll be available for the rest of the weekend. Thank you.